These are 10 settings I believe every Battlefield 6 player should change or at least check before hopping into a Battlefield game to gain a few more kills. Now, these aren't magic settings that are suddenly going to make you drop 100 kills every game, but they can make the game feel smoother, improve your awareness, and help you win extra gunfights. These are all settings that I personally use, and I'll explain why I use every single one, so let's get straight into them. Starting off with probably the most recognizable and the biggest one, your field of view or FOV. A higher FOV lets you see much more of the battlefield around you, which means enemies are less likely to catch you off guard from the sides. Your overall awareness also improves massively the higher this is. I personally run mine on 120, but bear in mind this high, enemies at a distance shrink, therefore you might struggle to hit targets over range. So if you haven't got as good at accuracy as me, lower this to around 100 or 110, which is the perfect sort of range. This will ensure you can still hit those targets at short and long distance while maintaining a good field of view left and right. If you feel comfortable in the future, by all means bump this up to 120 and you will gain an extra advantage over opponents that aren't using it. Next up is your crosshair colour. The default white crosshair can blend into bright skies, smoke, and a lot of the lighter maps, making it hard to track your aim on targets. Now, I switched mine to a much brighter colour, and it's far easier to see during those hectic fights. It sounds like such a tiny change, but when every split second in an FPS game counts, and having good accuracy, having a clear crosshair really helps track those targets in hectic environments. Sticking to the theme of seeing people, this is one that I don't see many people talking about, and this is turning the SOVIS filter on. This should be on by default, but it helps enemies stand out more from the environment, especially on busy maps with lots of detail. It changes the lighting of the soldiers just by tweaking it ever so slightly to make them a bit unnatural, as opposed to when this is off and they blend in with the environment a lot more. You're not making enemies glow through walls or anything like that, but it does make them easier to pick out while you're scanning the battlefield due to a slight white haze over the character model. The next couple of settings are for my controller players only, and this one is a big one. Turn uniform soldier aiming off. Now this one might be controversial because a lot of people will tell you to keep it on, but personally I prefer it off. Yes, uniform soldier aiming can make your sensitivity more consistent across different zoom levels, but I find that on lower magnification sights it can feel far too fast in those CQB environments, and you might overshoot or undershoot a target and therefore miss the first bullet and potentially get killed. With it turned off, my close range aiming feels much more natural and controlled, and I definitely recommend trying both settings, but don't assume on is automatically the best option just because everybody says it is. Once you turn it off, scroll down to each individual zoom and change them to exactly what I show on screen right here. This will ensure you have perfect aim at close range and can still track targets at long distance and have perfect aim there too. Now, I know some people will argue about the consistency of their aim using uniform infantry aiming. However, you don't use every single scope level in every single game. Therefore, learn individual scopes for each weapon that you use, get used to it before hopping into a game in the firing range, and you can remain consistent while also having better precision. Speaking of more precision, if you're still playing on controller, this setting is huge. Lowering your stick dead zones makes your controller respond much sooner, meaning smaller stick movements actually register and make a bigger difference. Copy down the dead zones I'm showing right here. If you get any stick drift where your character is moving without you touching your controller analog sticks, bump this up by 0.5 each time until that stops, and then you will be golden. The only difference here is on your left stick, change your max input threshold to 60 rather than 100, as this will allow you to get max movement with less moving of the analog stick and therefore make it feel more responsive in game. The same goes for your trigger dead zones. Lower trigger dead zones all the way to the bottom, which is 0 and 5, 0 and 5, because this can make your weapon fire sooner. As soon as you press that trigger, you get an instant response rather than having to press it halfway, let's say, or all the way down before you fire that first bullet. Those few milliseconds can really help in some gunfights where you both fire at the same time. If they lose out by a couple of milliseconds, you're going to get the kill as opposed to them. Now, when it comes to aiming, you're going to really struggle if your camera is shaking around or you have lots of motion blur and things happening on your screen. Battlefield is absolutely full of explosions and chaos, which yes, is part of what makes it fun, but all that extra camera movement and blur can make it harder to stay on target. I keep camera shake nice and low and motion blur completely off. The game will instantly feel much clearer, especially during intense firefights, and you'll be able to easily keep track of targets and hit more bullets on targets and get more kills. Number 7 is another simple setting that just makes the game feel smoother overall, and that is auto sprint. With auto sprint enabled, you're not constantly clicking your stick every time you want to move around the map, and it's one less thing to think about, and it lets you focus more on positioning and the fight ahead. Basically, all you need to do is push your analog forward, and instead of starting to walk, you will auto sprint forward. Bear in mind, if you are laid prone, you will have to ADS down sight and then move forward, otherwise your character will just stand up. I recommend this setting for most people as it takes away a bit of the thinking and also allows the game to feel a lot smoother and also the movement to feel so much more fluid. For number 8, we move on over to gaining information or awareness of where your enemies are. The minimap is your biggest tool here, and it gives you so much information if you actually utilize it. By making this slightly larger, it means you can glance over and instantly spot teammates, objectives, and where fights are breaking out with having to stare at a tiny corner of your screen. By also increasing the distance, you will see a lot more around you. You might not necessarily see what's happening in your building, but you will see everything around you and what you can be expecting, therefore improve your positioning and get more kills once again. Number 9 that is linked to your minimap is your compass. Make sure this is on. I started turning it off just to clean up the HUD, but I turned it back on because the little red dots show up on the minimap in the correct direction somebody is firing. So you know if you aim yourself to the north or the south or wherever that red dot is showing on the center of your screen, you know that in front of you somewhere is an enemy and you can prepare for a gunfight. It'll help you understand exactly where enemies are, especially when teammates are making callouts or enemies are being spotted. As I say, even if they are firing or spotted, they will show up as a red dot on that compass. Getting into the habit of checking your compass alongside your minimap can massively improve awareness and your positioning and massively improve the amount of kills you get per game. The final setting, or final couple of settings, is to do with your HUD. The default HUD isn't bad, but you can make it a little cleaner, and adjusting the colours can make important information stand out much more. Not only the colours, but also changing all of these scales right here can mean that objective targets don't get in the way of your actual enemy targets when aiming down your sights. I'll scroll through all of these right now so that you can see every single adjustment you need to make, and pause the video if necessary so that you can have the cleanest HUD and see more enemies. Another addition to this is your HUD padding. Make sure you close this in a little bit, therefore you don't have to glance as far down to your left hand corner to see your minimap. taking your eyes away from the center screen where the most important information is. Quickly readjust back to the center screen and see where enemies are. So those are the 10 settings I recommend checking before your next game. They won't instantly turn you into the best Battlefield player in the world, but together they can make the game feel smoother, improve your awareness, and help you perform more consistently. If you've got any settings that you think everyone should be using, let me know down in the comments. I'm always interested to see what other players are running that perhaps could help me be better. If this video helped you out, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for more Battlefield 6 content. And for now, I hope you have a fantastic day, I hope you get more kills in Battlefield, and I hope to catch you in the next one.